Welcome back to the channel, guys, and in this video it is going to be a full guide for Blair. Now when I say full guide, what I mean is we're going to go through um, everything about Blair, from all four of his Transcendent mods to what's the best weapon to use on him, some of the best components, best reactors, so on and so forth. So if Blair is somebody that you're interested in, or you do play Blair and you want a little bit of build ideas or how to optimize him in particular aspects, well, this is going to be the video for you. So what's going to happen is I'm going to put some timestamps to show each segment that we're going to go over. This might be a lengthy video, but I'll try to keep it short and precise. But you know me, I like to talk a lot, so we'll see how that goes. So without wasting time, let's just get straight into this. All right, so for starters, with Blair, you know, my boy's pimped out. But anyways, let's go ahead and review some of his just base stats for him as a character. So we're gonna look at this mobbing setup that you'll see on the screen, but I'm not gonna go over the stats that I have. We'll just be looking at base stats, and I'll be showing you exactly how Blair operates. So starting with his first ability, he just drops a fire pool on the floor, and that's it. It does damage with any enemy standing inside of it, and then it does damage over time if an enemy exits the fire pool. The base stats of this weapon is you can have stored up to 3 flame pools, so you can spam 3 at a time, and then each one that you spam will go on a cooldown. It is a 12-second cooldown for each one. MP cost is 19. Now, your continuous damage, now it is a low multiplier of 36.4%, so your first ability isn't really going to crank out too much damage. It does 1-second damage intervals with a 15-second base duration. The range is only 3.5 meters, so it is fairly small. You can extend it up to 250%. I'll tell you what the max is later once we get into the build portion. Now, the burn duration, so once they exit the flame pool and they take that continuous dot damage, it does 40.5% of skill power. Still not that much damage. Your damage intervals is the same at 1 second, and it's only a 5-second burn time. Your second ability, what it does is each time you put a flame pool on the floor, you can summon a fireball out of that flame pool, and it'll give you a buff. Now, the buffs are, well, the cooldown for the ability first is 22 seconds at base. And once you consume a buff out of the flame pool, it is stackable up to 5, so you can have 5 pulls down and receive 5 fireballs, and those will give you stacks up to 5. You get MP recovery, 8% of your max MP, so the more MP stuff you have on your character, like the higher your MP is, the more you'll get, obviously, because it's percentage based, not a set number. So skill power modifier increase is 6% per stack, so you'll get 30% skill power modifier increase. This is additive, so it's going to add 30% skill power modifier to whatever your skill power modifier is for your ability, and the duration is 10 seconds. So let's say we get our 5 stacks. As you see, our base skill power modifier for our flame pool is 36.6, but if you use a second ability and receive all 5 stacks, you'll go up to 66.6 because you're getting an extra 30% added. So not bad. It definitely does make your first ability considerably stronger. Your first ability, my apologies. Your third ability is a flamethrower. This is really cool, and it does some pretty good damage. Definitely does some pretty good damage. So it's just a flamethrower. So you stick your hand out and shoot a flamethrower. Cooldown on this is 30 seconds. MP cost is 35, so this does cost quite a bit. Now your continuous damage is 152.5% of your skill power, and your damage intervals, this one ticks for every 0.3 of a second. It gets a tick of damage. The duration is 4.5 seconds, so you can shoot for 4.5 seconds straight. You can cancel it at any time by reactivating the ability. Your range is only 3 meters at base, which is fairly short, and max extendable range is 250%. Your burn is the same. We won't go over the burn every single time. 40% of the skill power, continuous damage, 1 second intervals, 5-second duration. Now, your ultimate ability, or your 4, whatever you want to categorize it as, is a giant fireball. So if you know who Escanor is, you get a giant fireball and you get to launch it. Once it explodes, it's going to drop 3 more fireballs outside of that. So the cooldown is 120 seconds at base. MP cost is 60. Giant fireball, so the initial big fireball, does a skill power damage modifier 407.1% with a exploding damage range of 6 meters at base, and obviously you can increase it 250%. Your small fireballs, once the big one explodes, it'll drop out 3 more smaller fireballs. So now these small fireballs burst damage is 616.8%, so quite a lot more than the giant fireball. Explosion damage range is 3.5 meters at base. It is the same exact range as your first ability. So that's what the small fireballs are. And the max XMO range 250%. Now the flame zones it's the same. So it's your first ability. So that's what the flame zones that drop from the small fireballs after they explode. It drops your first ability. So pretty cool. And now your passive. Now, your passive, what it does is, as long as you're attacking an enemy that is on fire, you'll get the buff. And how to get the buff as well with the on fire person, you have to have flame pools on the floor. Doesn't matter, the flame pools don't have to do damage. They could be way off in Narnia, but as long as they are active on the floor, they will stack up to 5 times to give you up to 25% critical hit chance and 10% critical hit damage. The critical hit damage is a flat crit damage. Doesn't matter if you have 1, doesn't matter if you have 5. It's 10% flat. But the crit chance depends on the amount of flame zones, up to 5% per flame zone, giving you 25%. And as long as you're attacking an enemy who is on fire, doesn't matter if they're in the flame pool or not, the enemy just has to be on fire, you'll get the 25% critical hit, skill critical hit rate, and skill critical hit damage. So that's the base setup for Blair, right? So the mobbing Blair setup will not be the best mobbing setup in the whole game. Best, it's not. But if you just like fire and you like, stuff like that, like I do, this one, don't get me wrong, this is no slouch. This definitely puts out the damage, and I'll show you how you work his kit to get maximum damage. So, anyways, let's look at the build. So we have some critical hit damage in here because we're gonna get a lot of skill critical hit chance from his passive ability. So we're capitalizing on that by putting skill critical hit damage right here. We also went for the other front lines, which is more skill critical damage, but we do also get a bonus of critical hit rate. So that just adds on to our already, critical hit rate that we're gonna get from Blair. Now, we went for Tactician. Now, Tactician it gives you skill power modifier plus 50.8%. And the reason I went for that is because our multiplier is so low that even if you increased, like, let's say I put on, we put focus on fire here, right? And if I just had focus on fire with no tactician, or I put focus on fire and put focus on dimension, our damage will be lower just because our modifier for our first ability is really, really low at a 36.4%. So we added 50% to give us 87.2%, which will let us be able to utilize more of that skill power that we get from our reactors and things of that nature. So we will get more damage out. I don't know how to explain it really better than that, but just think of it like if you have a really low skill power modifier, you want to put tactician on to increase the skill power modifier. There's another mod you can put on for that as well, but like right here, iron defense, it gives you 12.7%, so you can put both of them on and get a little bit higher. But if, let's say, you're below 100% or 100% or below, you could benefit from tactician by increasing that skill power modifier better than if you just increase the damage or the skill power, like right by like focus on fire, focus on dimension. But For in the case of, let's say, like Deadly Cuisine, since it has 407 or 616, you're not really going to benefit from adding that little bit of that 50%. You will be better off adding something like Focus on Fire, Focus on Dimension, or even this mod right here. Where's it at? Oh, right here. Power increase. So look, I'm gonna tell you this because we will get to this. We actually do use this in one of our builds, but if your skill power modifier is absurdly high, power increase will always benefit you more than using one of the focus mods. I can guarantee you that. If you don't believe me, go and test it. Go get a character like the new character Haley and use her ability since she's up in the high thousands. Put a focus on chill or whatever, do some damage, and then do the power increase, and then do damage. And I can guarantee you every single time, power increase will always do more damage. So if you have a really high skill power modifier, use power increase. If it's really low, use tactician. Like Blair's first ability is really low, so you want to use tactician. And if it's like a mid, if it's like decent, like maybe like the flamethrower is pretty decent, and the his deadly cuisine, it's decent, so you can use focus mods. So that's why we went for tactician. I'm not just focused on one of his abilities. I want to use all of his abilities. That's why we have both focus on fire and we have tactician. I would like for my flame pulse to do damage for add control, and I would like for my flamethrower to do a little bit more damage. That's why we have focus on fire. And same thing with the deadly cuisine. So we went for some cooldown because we're going to be kind of spammy with this build. You're going to be spamming those flame pulls down a lot. So we went for two cooldown mods. We went for MP conversion and for nimble fingers. We're going to be doing a lot of spamming. So you want some really decent cooldown rate. We also went for some duration. Now, the reason why we went for these two duration mods and I didn't go for the other duration mod that's higher, but remember, it reduces your skill power modifier because our first ability is pretty low. It's going to tank it. The damage is going to be abysmally horrible. So we went for MP Accelerant and Skill Extension. The reason why we want these is because our first ability is going to be heavily reliant on duration. As you see, it's a 15-second base, but with those two mods, we're at 24.4 seconds. Also, our second ability, our buff time, goes from 10 seconds to 16.3. Now, you can increase this if you would like, and I would say it's up to you. I just wouldn't recommend, unless if you don't care to use the first ability really and you just want to use the flamethrower, um, you know, you could do some sacrificing there. So, anyways, the next thing that's super important is range. If you have range is a must have on Blair if you're going to be using his skills. Because the base range is really low on him, a 3.5 meter for this and a 3 meter range for the flamethrower, that range is it's kind of bad. So range is a must have if you're going to play Blair. So we put on skill expansion and we also put on amplification control. If you want more range, you can put on the other mod, but remember it will reduce your skill power modifier. So I wouldn't really recommend doing that. And that's the build. And that's the build in a nutshell. Now, the only thing really that you can add to this build is let's say you're not all too great with um, surviving because there, as you see, there's no health things in here. So I would recommend that you take out MP Accelerant so you can take out some of the duration. So let me tell you, let's see what it's looking like now. So look, our duration is 24.4 seconds with each flame pull. If we take out that mod, now we're at 21.3. So you can live without it. Without that duration mod, you can go ahead and put yourself. Let me adjust this 1 second. And there you go. You can go ahead and adjust it and give yourself some health, a little bit more survivability. Now let me tell you, if dying is something that kind of happens to you frequently, but I put health on. Just put one health mod on. You know, you can't do DPS if you're dead. If you're on the ground crawling, you're not doing damage. Doesn't matter how optimized your DPS build is if you're on the ground because you got clapped. Put health on if you find yourself dying a lot. So there's that. Now, to add to this build, what you can do is you can either add Classic Chef, which I don't have space because of this. So let me readjust this. Let me readjust this real quick. Back to what I had. All right, there we go. So you can use Classic Chef or you can use Incendiary Bomb. There's a downside to Incendiary Bomb, which I'll get to that. So let me show you Classic Chef. So if you look at Classic Chef, it's going to change your passive. It doesn't change anything else. I know it shows the symbols are different, but that's because this only affects the flame pool. Your fourth ability does drop little fire pools on the floor, and your passive ability is based off your fire pool things. So what does it change? Well, it changes the passive to now where you get, instead of 5 stacks max for critical hit chance, now you can get up to 7 stacks max for critical hit chance. So that's 10% extra critical hit chance that you can get, skill critical hit chance, just by using Classic Chef. And, you know, it's pretty nice. It'll definitely ensure that you're practically always hitting crits. Also, the other thing that it changes is your fourth ability. Instead of dropping 3 secondary, like, or 3 little mini bombs or whatever, your little fire pools, it's going to drop 5. So that's pretty nice. So you can use Classic Chef if you want, or you can use Incendiary Bomb. Your playstyles will be slightly different depending on which one you want to use, which we'll go over that in just a minute. What does Incendiary Bomb do? Well, Incendiary Bomb makes it to where now you can throw your flame pools. You no longer have to drop it at your feet. You can yeet that Jones like, yeah, I mean. So that's what Incendiary Bomb does. Now, Incendiary Bomb does increase the cost of each fire pull thing, your first ability, by I think it's 3. So let's see, it's 22 right there, and it's, yeah, 19 at base. So it does increase the cost, but it also decreases the range. And for me personally, that's the only issue that I have with this mod. So your base range is a 2.5 meters with Incendiary Bomb, and without it, it is a 3.5 meter. Now, what does that mean? That means when you add the mods, because mods go based off of the base stats, your range cannot increase that high. So I think the maximum range that Incendiary Bomb can go is 7.5 meters. But if you were to not use Incendiary Bomb and just use the base, or the highest you can get is 10.5 meters. That's the largest you can get. As you see, we're not at max range, but that's the highest you can get. So although being able to throw your flame balls definitely does add a sort of quote unquote quality of life, it's just a little bit just because your range is reduced quite a bit too. And it's definitely noticeable, especially if you run like his no Transcendent mod or you run Classic Chef. So it's a little bit rough. It's all up to you. So get a mental picture right now. Look at the range of this. Actually, I might be able to show you right now. Hey, I can. Cool. Now you see the range of this. Now look at the range of this. Look at the difference. See that? Exact same mods on, but it's just this one is a lot smaller. That's crazy, right? So, now don't get me wrong, it's cool because look, I mean, I can just yeet these things. It's not like the damage gets decreased or anything. It's just, you know what I mean? You get what I mean? It's cool, right? And like if you just want to kind of chill from a distance instead of having to run up and drop a fire pull on the floor, this works perfectly fine for that. Like, there's no issues here. Last thing that I want to say, I don't want to, not tell you this. Blair can have infinite MP with, so you never have to worry about MP with Blair as long as you play it right. Blair can have infinite MP, and that's all dependent on the duration of your first ability. So as you see, my duration is 24.4 seconds, and my second ability is cooldown of 7 seconds. So every 7 seconds, I can call in a fireball, which will give me the 8% max MP per flame zone every 7 seconds when I use that ability 3 times. So you'll always have MP. You'll literally never run out of MP. So as long as you play it right, you just keep spamming your second ability whenever it comes off cooldown. Obviously, it's going to refresh your buff, and it's also going to keep giving you MP. So that's what you want to do when you're using his mobbing setup. So you can be the spam god. So yeah, there we go. So that's this build. Um, Reactors. So if you're gonna do the mobbing setup for reactors, my recommendation would be go for some range. You want to put some range on here. I don't have any. Well, I do have a range on right here. I have range and critical hit rate. Um, I wish it was critical hit damage. So range and critical hit damage would be your best friend. You could also do cooldown and range, but range 100%. And the reason I say that is because if you've seen the build, well, let me show you actually. So look at the build. We are at 8.5 meters in our range, but if we go ahead and put on this little range mod and we look at it now, now we are at 9.3 meters. So it's a little bit increased, but it goes a long way, especially if you're gonna use Incendiary Bomb, right? We didn't max out our range here. Like I said, 10.5 is the max range. We are about 1 meter off of that, 1.2 meters off of that. So we're not too far off of max range. But for the mobbing setup, you want to cover as much ground as possible, right? If you can, cover the entire room that you're in. So go for range all the time. Now, I say go for critical hit damage because, and also try to get a gold reactor. It really makes a difference in your damage. You kind of need a gold reactor to really get a good amount of damage out with the mobbing setup. But I think range critical hit damage will be your best friend. Cooldown is cool, but we already are at a low enough cooldown to where we can cycle through all of our abilities appropriately and maintain and manage a whole group of enemies without any issues. So I think cooldown is cool, but you could do better. Like I said, I would say go for range since we are only at 8 point something. Get some range. If you can get a gold one, you'll be higher than 9.3, closer to the max of 10.5, so you have more coverage. Also, get the critical hit damage because you're going to be doing a lot of crits. So, get that crit damage popping. Or you can go for like dimension, right? Dimension skill power boost ratio. You can do that too. But those are really it. I would not recommend really rocking crit, especially because as you've seen, you're critting a lot. So I wouldn't recommend doing crit at all. Like as you see with this one right here, we got a skill critical hit damage and dimension. It's cool, don't get me wrong, this is good. You will get more damage out of this, so you can use this, but if it just depends on what you're doing or something like that. So this is a good reactor. Range would be a solid choice. So range, crit, dimension. Crit damage. Don't do crit chance. It's a waste if you do crit chance. And yeah, that's what you want for the mobbing setup. Now your components. Oh no, I didn't have the right components on. We'll be doing more damage, all right, but I didn't have the right components on. So the components that you want is, where's it at? The Slayer set. And let me put it all on and show you. Dang. See, I don't want this video to be like stupid long. So I'm gonna obviously be cutting certain stuff out so it's not too long so I don't bore you guys. But I really want to show you what the damage looks like with the Slayer set. Dang. I'm sad now. I'm still gonna show you. I'll decide if I keep it in the video or not. But you want to slap on Slayer set. What Slayer set does is, okay, cool, 2-piece set, general rounds capacity. All right, that's fine. But your 4-piece set is what's makes this build really, really good. Is rounds per magazine plus 9%, but your skill cost is plus 50%. So it's going to cost you a little bit more to use your abilities. But because remember, like I said, we have infinite MP as long as we keep using our second ability off cooldown. So we're always going to have MP no matter what, if you pay attention though. And our skill power is plus 26%. Now that's what we're really worried about. The defeating enemies who are told recovers MP. Cool. We don't care about that. We're just worried about that bonus skill power of 26%. Now let's say you don't have the Slayer set, or you just don't want to use the Slayer set because the skill cost is something that you just don't want to deal with. What you can do is put on the 2-piece volcanic set, which you get from Molten Fortress. So put the 2-piece on to go ahead and gives you that 6.2% fire skill power. It's not going to be as much as good as the Slayer set, but and then you can also put on a duration, so a 2-piece annihilation set, give you some little bit of duration right there, which will definitely set you up for keeping your shit on the field for a lot longer. So I recommend Slayer set 100% of the time. Yeah, and that's just that. See? A little bit more damage, like I said. More damage is more damage. So running the Slayer set is definitely going to net you more damage than if you didn't run the Slayer set. See, 262,000 instead of the 200,000. So you're getting yourself some more damage out here. Running the Slayer set. So yeah, run the Slayer set. Make sure you get a gold reactor too. Also upgrade your gold reactor. As you see, it's gonna be a little bit more damage, not too crazy, but more damage is more damage. So upgrade your reactor, get a gold reactor, use that weapon, and um, use the Slayer set. So that's the mobbing setup for Blair. This will definitely, you will never have a problem mobbing. You'll kill all the mobs all the time with no issue. You can even kill yellow bars pretty quickly. So there's that. Now let's talk about the 4, his ult. Now, as you see, we are using the Transmod Truly Deadly Cuisine. Truly Deadly Cuisine is super awesome for Blair. This is what will give him his hardest hitting damage when it comes to his skill builds. And it's pretty nice. It's pretty fun, actually, as well. And it's pretty satisfying. So let's go ahead and see what this build is. So it's Truly Deadly Cuisine, which is the transmod. And what does that do? It changes your 4th ability. So no longer do you have a giant fireball plus 3 small fireballs. It's just 1 giant fireball. But this giant fireball goes from 400 skill power modifier to 6,934.4 at base. So we're getting a lot more damage out of this giant fireball, which is amazing. So the base cooldown is 70 seconds. The MP cost is 60. Skill power modifier 6,934.4. Your radius is 4 meters. And the burn is, burn is the same across the board all the time. And so that's what the base stats is for the Truly Deadly Cuisine. Now let's go ahead and look at the build. So we went for critical hit rate on here. We went for critical hit damage. And then we also went for the other front lines critical hit damage with some more critical hit rate. Now, the reason why we went for some critical hit rate is because we want to make sure we're always critting. So we have the crit rate, crit damage, and crit damage with a little bit of crit rate. We didn't go for the other one because, we wanted to put in other mods to make this build viable. But we still wanted enough crit to where we could do some pretty juice boy damage. We also went for skill cooldown. Now we went for MP conversion and we went for nimble fingers. So we can get some pretty good cooldown because this build is centered around getting his 4th ability back as quick as possible without really jeopardizing damage. We want to get max damage plus some good cooldown. So that's why we went for these two. We also went for multi-talented because multi-talented because the Blair's dimension, when you use a dimension active skill, skill cooldown is minus 20.5% for 5 seconds. So we get reduced skill cooldown on top of our nimble fingers and MP conversion. So our cooldown now is 26.5%, and with multi-talented, I don't know what it is, but it's lower than 26.5%. So there's that. Now, we went for power increase because we are getting a lot more damage out of power increase because our skill power modifier is almost 7,000. So power increase will net you way more damage than if you were to use something like focus on fire or something like that. We went for duration as well on this build. We went for maximized duration, the one that gives us negative 21% skill power modifier, but that's only because our skill power modifier is already 6,934. Minus 21% isn't going to do that much damage to our setup. So we went for maximized duration, for some duration with skill extension. Now, if you wonder why, is because Blair still works the same here. You want your flame pools to be on the floor as long as possible, so that way you continuously get his passive critical skill critical hit rate increase, 25% max. So that's why we have it. We went for some range as well. Now the reason why I decided range would be good in this build is simply due to the fact that in order to get the crit, the enemy needs to be on fire. So if you have a larger range flame pool, the enemy will be on fire a little more frequently than if not, because Truly Deadly Cuisine doesn't drop any fireballs. And when I use this build, I'm only using the first ability and the fourth ability. So that's why we put a little bit of range on here. You can take the range out if you want and slot yourself in something like health, or you can put in the other crit mod, which will obviously give you a little bit more damage. But I went for range for a quality of life as I'm using this build to make sure I'm getting the 25% critical hit rate increase. And that's this build. Now, I want to show you the damage. It does pretty good damage. We are not going to put the flame pools on the person so we can kind of try to see the damage here. Alright, so now we're at 5. Now I gotta catch the person on fire. So I'm just gonna use the flamethrower real quick. Catch him on fire and let's throw it. What was that, 5 million? Unless I'm blind. Let's see again. No, that was 7 million. 7 million damage. So as you've seen, that's some daddy clapping numbers. 7 million damage. Like, that's pretty good. Now, look. I know other people do it, hit harder numbers. But for Blair, 7 million damage? And you can get this out pretty quick. Let's see. And that was a 6.6 million damage with no added little buffs from his second ability. And now I can throw another one. 6.6 million with no buffs, no nothing. I mean, like, that's pretty nuts. Now you could put this one in here, right here. This is going to give you a little bit more damage, obviously, but it will drop your crit rate just a little bit. Let's see if we can hit a crit. Alright, a 7.3 million damage crit. With that mod on. Now let's go ahead and see what it's gonna look like if we had that 4 or 5. If we put on this mod, 7.9 million damage. 7.9. And do you see my MP? Now I got it back again. Look, 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 look. MP, now I got it back again. I'm about to have it back again. So it's an infinite cycle. But anyways, that's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage. So, my bad. So what can you do? You can obviously, do like I said, emergency measures. This just depends on if you're feeling lucky or not. If you're feeling unlucky, you can put back on the other one. That's a straight crit chance. But if you want more damage, put on this critical hit one with the critical hit damage. Keep your critical hit damage and these ones on. Do not take these cooldown mods off. 100% do not take these off. These are essential for this build. So what can you take off? You can take out range if you want. Well, I can't show you because, yeah. But you can take out range if you want and put like an HP mod in there. You can take out range and you can even put focus on dimension to get yourself even more damage. It's all up to you. And depending on how you play and how good you are, that determines what you can or what you should do. Just because let's say I can survive with this build, doesn't mean you can. I'm not saying you're trash. I'm just saying if you die a lot, this build's worthless. There's no reason you need to be running this build, but you can just take this off and put on a health mod. Like I said, the best DPS is as long as you're alive. So make sure you stay alive. You can take out the range mod. It won't really negatively impact your build when it comes to damage. It will not. So you can take this out and put on. I would say 100% duration stays. Cooldown stays. This power increase 100% stays. And your crit mods stay. So the only thing that you really can switch out is the range mod. But like I said, it's up to you. So as you see, this build is hitting like an absolute unit. Now let's talk about the reactor and components. So your reactor that you want to run, obviously, is going to be a gold one. Now, for this one, I will definitely say critical hit damage is a must-have. Crit damage is a must. Now you can do cooldown and crit damage, or you can do, as you see on this one, I have additional skill attack when attacking Colossus, and then I have Dimension Skill Power Boost ratio. But I would rather switch out the Dimension Skill Power Boost ratio for critical hit damage, because I think that'll really boost the damage up. But you want, for sure, critical hit damage. And then I would say you could definitely do cooldown, or you can do like I have here, Colossus, or you could do Dimension. But whatever you want to optimize the build to your liking, do that. I just haven't been too lucky on getting good reactors. What's my other one? My other one is this one, critical hit rate and singular. Like, yeah, I've been getting held with my reactors, but I would say ideally, if you crit damage guaranteed 100% for sure, and then the rest is up to you. Cooldown would be nice though, so that way you could spam those ults even more. So I would say cooldown, critical hit damage will be probably best in slot for the truly deadly cuisine build. So do that. External components is going to be hands down 100% the Slayer set, just because of that skill power increase of 26%. Like I said, this 26% is going to make a really, really big difference because our skill power modifier is so high. So put on the Slayer set to get you the 26% increased skill power. And then obviously upgrade your reactor. Get a cooldown and crit damage reactor. And yeah, so that's the 4 build, the truly deadly cuisine build. This thing is beautiful when it comes to damage. It's beautiful. As you've seen, the damage I just hit, almost 8 million damage. So there's that. So if you see my last video, where I talked about the buffs and changes to Blair. BackDraft was the one that I talked about. So instead of doing a super long explanation, I'm gonna just tell you what BackDraft does. No longer does your buffs buff your skills, it only buffs firearms. So your weapons will get better damage. The buff is as such: 30% weak point damage, 25% firearm attack, 10% critical hit damage, and 25% critical hit chance. The way to get these buffs operate the exact same as if you're trying to get buffs for either the 4 build or the mobbing build. It's the same, but it's just for weapons, and they're pretty good buffs. So anyways, let's go ahead and look at the build we're doing now. Only range, duration, and a whole bunch of survivability mods. Because that's all you need. Your abilities aren't going to be worth nothing with the Transcendent mod BackDraft. Now, as you see, I have shot focus on. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Put something else on. This is just going to give us a little bit more extra damage. Like I said, I have this on just because, but that's it. This build is actually freaking pretty simple to do. So, you know what I mean? So, there's nothing too special and fancy about how to build it, but yeah. So let's go ahead and look at your reactors. So now for this one, it does not matter what reactor you have on. And what I mean is, even if you don't want to use a fire reactor, let's say you have a god rolled other reactor, like let's say this one right here had like skill cooldown and duration. You know what I mean? I would put it on, because none of this matters, because like I said, we're not focusing on skill damage. So put on anything that's going to give you duration for sure. 100% duration. Anything else doesn't really matter. So let me see if I have a duration one. Yeah, it looks like I don't. So I don't have a duration one, but you want to put duration on for sure. I used to have one, but I accidentally deleted it when I was messing around with this new filter thing. So, that's amazing. But yeah, no, just put duration on for sure. Anything else you can, whatever you want. Even if it's just trash, don't even worry about it. Who cares? Just duration for sure. So that way your buff stays up a lot longer, and your flame pools and everything stays up longer. So that's what you want. Doesn't even have to be a fire one. Could be a freaking electric one if you want. Now, the external components. I'm gonna be honest, this one has been a little bit tough for me to figure out what would be the best. Really, so Slayer. No, you don't want Slayer for this one. That one you just don't want it. What I've been running was the Annihilation set. Yeah, I just been running the Annihilation set. Just because, in a boss fight, you might get punched in the mouth a few times. Or not even in a boss fight, like anywhere you use BackDraft Blair, the dungeon, whatever it is, it's like, I don't know. I mean, the 2-piece set's going to give us duration, which obviously you really want to maximize duration as much as you can. And then the 4-piece set, if you're getting beat on, you got more damage when your HP is below 50%. And we're focused on firearm attack anyways, so this is like a, trump card, I guess. Bust out that damage, juicy. So that's what the Annihilation set, that's why I run it. Honestly, I'm not going to tell you this is the best external components to use for BackDraft, but this is just what I use, just because of the duration and the bonus firearm attack I get if I'm getting beat on. As you see, we have 10,000 HP with 37,000 defense. Not the tankiest, obviously. Like I said, you can take out these range mods and add yourself in a little bit more HP and more defense if you would like. But that's that. Now, all this build does is increase your damage. Yeah, 1,000,000 damage, bro. What? 1,000,000 damage a hit? with the Greg's Reverse Fate. Like, what is that? Like, what? What is that? What? So, that's Backdraft Build. It's just gonna buff your weapons to an extreme degree, giving you good crit. As you see, oh wait, my buffs go away. Yeah, they went away. Whatever. But you're gonna get some pretty good crits. You're gonna get some pretty good firearm attack increase, weak point damage increase. So it's all around a solid freaking uh, weapons buff character. So that's all three of the builds. Now let's talk about best in slot weapons for Blair. So your best in slot weapons will be anything that gives you fire, right? Because his passive works off of enemies caught on fire. Enduring Legacy will 100% be best in slot for Blair because it's, fire aspect to it. Alongside the Greg's Reversed Fate. This thing is fire like that. When its special ability will proc little, stuff, and it's gonna light people on fire. So Enduring Legacy and Greg's Reverse Fate, best in slot hands down. Now, if you want to look for like an ultimate weapon, honestly, just really whatever. Did I say ultimate weapon? Not ultimate weapon. Like high powered weapon. Um, it's up to you. For when it comes to high powered weapons. Um, I just have the piercing light on just because I don't know, I do. But I mean, anything works when it comes to this, but best in slot for sure. These two, hands down, and I wouldn't use anything outside of this if you're gonna use Blair. Doesn't matter if you're using any of the four builds. Use one of these two, 100%. So that means when you go farm your reactors, make sure you're farming a reactor either for special rounds or general rounds, so you can get Enduring Legacy or Greg's Reversed Fate because these are his best in slot. So alright guys, so that's going to do it for the video. If you guys like the video, please like the video. Comment on the video. Which build is your favorite build? Which build do you think is the best build? And with the clips that I did, that I am going to be putting in between, tell me, do you think Incendiary Bomb is worth using? I know that the other two builds, Backdraft and Truly Deadly Cuisine, and even if you use the mobbing setup with the chef's choice Gordon Ramsay mod, I don't know what it's called, I don't remember, but all of those work perfectly fine. But Incendiary Bomb is like the oddball out just because of its negative range increase. So what do you think about Incendiary Bomb? Anyways guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, it definitely helps me a lot. We are growing. Not, that sounded weird. The channel's growing, and yeah, I can't even get my words out right. I'm happy. I get so excited to see more people subscribe to the channel, more people watching the videos and stuff like that. It's so cool. I just want to thank you guys so much for that. And yeah, that's gonna be it for me. And until next time.